bestbookbits.com brings you the book summary of Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. From the Academy Award-winning actor, an unconventional memoir filled with raucous stories, outlaw wisdom, and lessons learned the hard way about living with greater satisfaction. I've been living this life for 50 years, been trying to work out its riddle for 42, and been keeping diaries of clues to that riddle for the last 35. Notes about successes and failures, joys and sorrows, things that made me marvel and things that made me laugh out loud, how to be fair, how to have less stress, how to have fun, how to hurt people less, how to get hurt less, how to be a good man and how to have meaning in life, and how to be more me. Recently I woke up with the courage to sit down with these diaries. I found stories I've experienced, lessons I learned and forgot, poems, prayers, prescriptions, beliefs about what matters, and some great photographs and a whole bunch of bumper stickers. I found a reliable theme, an approach to living that gave me more satisfaction at the time, and still, if you know how and when to deal with life's challenges, how to get relative with the inevitable, you can enjoy a state of success I call catching green lights. So I took a one-way ticket to the desert and wrote this book, an album, a record, a story of my life so far. This is 50 years of my sights and scenes, felts and figures outs, cools and shamefuls, graces, truths and beauties of brutality, getting away with, getting caught, and getting wets while trying to dance between the raindrops. Hopefully it's medicine that tastes good, a couple of aspirin instead of the infirmary, a spaceship to Mars without needing your pilot's license, going to church without having to be born again, and laughing through the tears. It's a love letter to life. It's always a guide to catching more green lights, and to realise that the yellows and reds eventually turn green too. Good luck. Now that intro was written by Matthew McConaughey. On with the book summary. Keynotes. He says this is an approach book. He is here to share stories, insights, philosophies that can be objectively understood, and if the reader chooses to be subjectively adopted by either changing reality or changing how you see it. Sometimes you got to go back to go forward, to see where you came from, where you've been, and how you got here. How did I get here? This is the first 50 years of his life, his resume so far, on the way to his eulogy. What's a green light? Green lights mean go, advance, continue. In our lives, they are an affirmation on our way. Approaches, support, praise, cash, health, success, sustainability, etc. Green lights can also be disguised as yellow or red lights. Sometimes red lights give us what we need. Catching green lights is about skill. We can catch more green lights by simply identifying where the red ones are and changing the course to avoid them. We can also earn green lights, engineer and design for them. Catching green lights is all about timing, the world's timing and ours. It can also be about sheer luck and fate. Navigating the autobahn of life is the best way possible. It's about getting relative with the inevitable at the right time. Inevitability of the situation is not relative. When we accept the outcome of a given situation as inevitable, then how we choose to deal with it is relative. The problems we face today eventually turn into blessings in the rearview mirror of life. In time, yesterday's red lights lead us to a green light. Part 1. Outlaw Logic, a Wednesday night, 1974. His parents were divorced twice and married 3 times to each other. 2 adages in life people generally use are the golden rule and everything in moderation. His parents taught him not to hate, not to say I can't, and to never lie. Words are momentary, intent is momentous. His parents didn't hope they followed their rules, they expected them. Denied expectation hurts more than denied hope, while fulfilled hope makes us happier than a fulfilled expectation. His mum's philosophy of seeing a thing, owning it, and signing your name to it was prepping him to become an actor long before he became one. Knowing the truth, seeing the truth, and telling the truth are all different experiences. We need discipline, guidelines, context, and responsibility early in any new endeavour. It's time to sacrifice, to learn, to observe, to take heed. Once we get knowledge of the space in the craft, then we have the freedom to create. Creativity needs borders. Individuality needs resistance. Without them, there is no form of art, only chaos. Part 2, Find Your Frequency, spring of 1988. In high school, he was the fun, popular guy. He hustled, made an effort, and engaged. Note to self, process of elimination and identity. The first step that leads to our identity in life is usually, I know who I'm not. We should get rid of the excuses in our lives that keep us from being more of ourselves. Prescribe, boundaries to freedom. We need finites, borders, gravity, shape and resistance to have order. This order creates responsibility, which creates judgment, which creates choice. In the choice lies the freedom. To create the weather that gives us the most favourable wind, we must remove that which causes the most friction to our core being. This process of elimination creates order by default. He found out from the other members of the Rotary Club families that the Dooleys were in fact insane and they couldn't believe Matthew had stayed with them that long. It was an Australian prank. He realised his suffering with that family was inevitable because they forced him to become an introspective person and look inside to himself to make sense of what the hell is going on around him. He learned that life's hard. Shit happens to us. We make shit happen. He made a commitment to himself so there was no turning back, but he got relative in order to survive. Note to self, the monster. The future is the monster, not the boogeyman under the bed. The past is something we're trying to outrun tomorrow. The monster is the future, the unknown, the boundaries not yet crossed, the potential not yet realised. Note to self, sometimes we find our frequency by holding on a moral bottom line in the midst of chaos. Sometimes we find it by breaking the rules and running the red light to get our ass home. He referenced a quote that says, "Style is knowing who you are, what you want to say, and not giving a damn." To have style, you have to have these in this order. Knowing who you are is the base that everything else comes from. Part 3, Dirt Roads and Autobahns, July 1989. Note to self, when we know what we want to do, knowing when to do it is the hard part. Get them early so you don't have to get them as often. Prevent before the cure. He knew he needed to stop lying to himself about wanting to become a lawyer. He knew he wanted to tell stories. He told his dad he didn't want to go to law school, and his dad's response was, "Don't half-ass it." Note to self, biology and giddy up, DNA and work, genetics and willpower. Life is a combination. Life is a combination of genetics and willpower. Bumper sticker, I'll take a little common sense with that knowledge. Prescription, tribes. We want lovers, friends, recruits, soldiers, and affiliations that support who we are. Individuals want to survive and have more of ourselves. We learn to measure people on their competence of their values that we most value. We all want to believe in and be believed in. We almost earn belief in ourselves first, then for each other. Travel and humility were his biggest educators because they have to help him understand the common denominator of mankind, values. Engage with yourself, then engage with the world. Values travel. Note to self, we are not here to tolerate our differences, we're here to accept them. We're not here to celebrate our sameness, but to salute our distinctions. We're not born into equal circumstances or with equal abilities, but should have equal opportunity. As individuals, we unite in our values. Note to self, cool. Cool is a natural law. It was cool from that time, then it is cool for all time. Cool stands the test of time because cool never tries, it just is. His first 3 lines recorded on set were his new infamous, "Alright, alright, alright." He would be known for 28 years later. Note to self, 1 in a row. Any success takes 1 in a row. Do one thing well and then another, over and over until the end. Note to self, days of prosperity. Days of prosperity can make us forget about adversity. The sooner we become less impressed with our accomplishments and more involved, we get better at them. Note to self, the genie is in the steam. You need genetic talent and hard work, but the magic is in the steam, the juice. Note to self, Hollywood, want her, don't need her. He and his friends rented motorcycles and rode all over Europe. It was the best trip of their lives, and they had so many more stories of their adventure. Afterward, he returned to Hollywood. Prescribe, dirt roads and autobahns. Sometimes the road less traveled is the autobahn. Robert Frost was right. Taking the road less traveled can make all the differences, but the road isn't necessarily the road with less traffic. It may be the road that we personally have traveled less. Just like how the road less traveled may be different for introverts and extroverts. Part 4, The Art of Running Downhill, January 1994. Bumper sticker. Most of the time, it's not stolen. It's right where you left it. Note to self. When you can, ask yourself if you want to before you do. Note to self. The intellect is not meant to surpass the apparent so much as to conceal it or to make it more confusing. It is meant to expose the truth more clearly and make it more obvious. It should simplify things, not make them more cerebral. Lesson learned. We have to prepare to have freedom. We have to do the work and then do the job. We have to prepare for the job so then we can be free and do the work. Note to self, we must learn the consequence of negligence. It's not just what we do, it's what we don't do that's important as well. We are guilty by admission. Note to self, if only. It means you wanted something but you did not get it. More often than not, we don't get what we want because we quit early or didn't take the necessary risk to get it. Note to self, made for the moment. We are all made for every moment we encounter, whether the moment makes us or we make the moment. Whether we are helpless in it or on top of it, the predator or the prey. Prescribe. A roof is a man-made thing. Don't create imaginary constraints or a way to think we don't deserve these fortunes when they are within our grasp. Who are we to think we haven't earned them? If we stay in process within ourselves, in the joy of doing, we will never choke the finish line because we are not thinking about the finish line. We are performing in the real time in which the approach is the destination. Note to self, sometimes you have, etc. Sometimes etc. has you. Prescribe. Why we all need a walkabout. We are more constantly bombarded by unnatural stimuli. We need to put ourselves in places of decreased sensory input so we can hear the background signals of our psychological processes. Sometimes we don't need advice. Sometimes we just need to hear we are not the only one. Prescription. Both are true. He does everything for him, but also for everyone else and God. He is responsible for fate. Each step has the big picture, and he is the man he wants to be. The fame got him to his mum's head and strained their relationship for 8 years, but eventually he loosened the reins and let her enjoy it all. Note to self, the art of running downhill. Don't trip yourself while running downhill. Don't invent drama. It will come on its own. Note to self, a man addicted to ideas needs to be intervened with starvation. A man addicted to truths needs to be fed. Note to self, just because the seats are empty doesn't mean they are not taken. Sometimes the guest list needs to be for one, you. Note to self, sometimes we have to leave what we know to find out what we know. Prescription and prayer. God, will I cross the truth? Give me the awareness to receive it, the consciousness to recognize it, the presence to personalize it, the patience to preserve it, and the courage to live it. Note to self, he's never cared much for destinations. He prefers simply a direction and a wide highway with room to swerve and explore along the way. He lived in a trailer park for a while where he can meet and live with people from all walks of life and backgrounds. However, everyone respected trailer park rules, which were not everyone minded their business and respected others' privacy. Note to self, common sense is like money in health. Once you have it, you have to work to keep it. Bumper sticker. Localized to customize. Adapt to modify. The Renaissance man is at home wherever he goes. One of the great freedoms of trailer life was you could go anywhere and find a new backyard whenever you want. We can go to different events, see new places, meet many people. Prescription. White collar prayers. Blue collar prayers are things that people need like food, shelter, medical assistance. White collar prayers are things people want like material things, privileged prayers. We need to quit asking God to answer these kinds of prayers. Part 5, Turn the Page, October 23, 1999. Bumper sticker. If you are high enough, the sun is always shining. Note to self, people don't get in trouble for what they do. They get in trouble for getting caught. The art is in getting away with it. The outlaw doesn't live at the edges. He lives in the center, cruising through the slipstream. Note to self, kiss the fire and walk away whistling. Basically, this means living a life on the edge and partying hard, but living and getting away with it. Note to self, two agnostics. Just because it says anonymous doesn't mean it has no author. Note to self, superstitions. Note to self, some people want the AC on in the gym so they won't sweat. He wears his beanie in July, so he will. Note to self, sometimes which choice you make is not as important as making a choice and committing to it. Bumper sticker. Educate before you indict. Bumper sticker. Some people look for an excuse to do, others look for an excuse not to do. He went to a village in Africa and ended up wrestling the strongest man and winning. Don't label things as unbelievable if they are remarkable and extraordinary. Believe it is possible, it just occurred. A village person told him that he won the wrestling match not because he won in the typical sense. He won because he accepted the challenge and held his own. Note to self, the justice it deserves. To appreciate a place fully, a man must know if he can live there. He needs to customize and localize himself to the place he visits. Then and only then is it truly acceptable for him to leave. Wherever you are, give the place the justice it deserves. Bumper sticker. I am good at what I love. I don't love all that I'm good at. He started to get more inner growth from his travel than from his career in acting. Great leaders are not always in front. They also know who to follow. Part 6. The arrow doesn't see the target draws the arrow. He had another wet dream about having a lot of children and past relationships to look back on in his old age. Note to self, the great man is not all to each, he is each to all. The genius can do anything, but does one thing at a time. Note to self, man is never more masculine than after the birth of his first child. Bumper sticker, life, like architecture, is a verb. If designed well, it works. It's beautiful and it needs no directions. It needs maintenance. Bumper sticker. It's not a risk unless you lose the fight. Part 7. Be brave. Take the hill. Fall of 2008. Note to self. Self-fish. The measure of a man's greatness is when he becomes classic. When mortal rewards are no longer enough to pay his rent, man becomes legend. Fish for yourself. Note to self, once you know it's black, it's not as dark. Bumper sticker. If we all made a sense of humour, the default emotion, we'd all get along a lot better. Prescription. Define success for yourself. Continue to ask yourself, what is success to me? Your answer may change over time, and that's okay. But whatever your answer is, don't choose anything that would jeopardise your soul. Prioritise who you are, who you want to be. Don't spend time with anything that antagonises your character. Be brave and take the help. But first, ask yourself, what is my hill? He initially turned down a script for 2 months' worth of work for $5 million. It eventually turned into a $14.5 million offer, which made the script seem far superior. However, he stuck to his commitment and would not accept any romantic comedy work. If he couldn't do what he wanted, he wasn't going to do what he didn't, no matter the price. Bumper sticker. Truth is like a jalapeno. The closer you get to the root, the hotter it gets. For 20 months, he was off the grid from Hollywood and out of the public eye. An honest man's pillow is his peace of mind. After just shy of 2 months, he was forgotten and rediscovered. He had successfully been able to unbrand himself, and now it was time to reinvent himself. Note to self, time and truth. One shows up at the first time every time, and the other never leaves. He jumped onto the opportunity to play the mentor role in The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio. That chest drumming thing was what he did off screen to keep his rhythm, but it was Leonardo's idea to do it in scene. Note to self, they are all storytellers in the movie business. They play make-believe, and when they do it well, they make the viewer believe. They made Dallas Buyers Club for $4.9 million, way under the original budget, in 25 days. Now, before we jump into the last part of this summary, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for watching and listening to this summary. We've currently uploaded more than 600 free video, audio, and written book summaries at Best Book Bits. We'd love for you to become a fan of us at bestbookbits.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also help keep Best Book Bits financially alive by checking out our products and services in the links below, such as physical books, downloadable PDFs, subscribing to our newsletter, consuming our courses, joining our coaching programs. Thanks again for watching and listening and being a fan. On with the summary. Part 8, Live Your Legacy Now, November 7, 2011. Being together with someone in marriage does not steal the sense of self, rather, it enlightens it. In marriage, we don't lose half ourselves, we become more of ourselves. His pastor told him that through this covenant with God, we actually triple our existence. We become 3 entities: wife, husband, and God. Note to self, if you just live together, you live for the present. If you marry, you live for the future. Note to self, the closer he gets to divinity, the more he wonders if he's a fraud. Note to self, there's a difference between art and self-expression. All art is self-expression, but all self-expression is not art. Prescribe. Why pray? It is time to take inventory, to take a look high and wide at ourselves, loved ones, and mortality, to smile at our blessings, to humble our selfish yearnings, to embrace who we are in need with our compassion. We don't live when we try not to die. We live longer when we are too busy living. In a nutshell, actor Matthew McConaughey reflects on his life and explains the concept of catching green lights. To him, this is knowing how and when to deal with life's challenges and getting relative with the inevitable. And that's wrapping the book summary of Greenlights. If you like this summary and want to download the PDF summary, click the link to access this. If you want to become a contributor to Best Book Bits and to become part of the community with the help of reading books, create summaries, and do audio recordings, DM me on Instagram at Best Book Bits. Thanks for watching and listening. Hope you got something from this. Go out there, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye now.